All right, everybody, welcome to this week's edition of MMA Cheat Sheet Live. We are covering UFC Fight Night 94, a big old showdown between Dustin Poirier and Michael Johnson in the lightweight division. I personally love this main event. I love Dustin Poirier more, but I love this fight just for the sheer brilliance that we're going to see unfold between these two gentlemen. We've got Dustin Poirier coming in at 10,400, Michael Johnson coming in at 9,000. Me personally, I love the price tag on Poirier. 10-4, that's a great price for what I think he's capable of doing. I've got my money on him coming in here and weathering the storm and possibly going on to get a finish somewhere around the third round. I'm going to send it off to my boys, though, to see what they think. Ridgers 10 in the house, Blood Rain 39 in the house. Ryan, what's your take on this awesome main event?
What's up, guys? So yeah, this is really a great fight. Or it will be for I think about a round and a half to 2 rounds. Poirier is on a roll. I mean, he's 4-0. He's moving up to the lightweight division. He looks fresh. He looks quick. It's the best version I've ever seen of Poirier. He was already a very good fighter, and yeah, this is going to be great. So Poirier is, I mean, he's a really good striker. He's got power. He's got accuracy, and he's also got some pretty good a pretty good grappling game to go with it. But I don't think this fight really gets down to the ground too much. Michael Johnson has great takedown defense. He's also a good striker. And I think he keeps it real interesting for about a round, maybe a round and a half, and then he starts to die off because that's just what Michael Johnson does. He tends to gas. He looks really, really good for a round, and then once that second round starts, you see him just start to fade. And I think Poirier's he's going to weather that first round. He's going to fight smart, stay on the outside, not take too many big shots, and then towards the end of the second round, into the third, he's really going to pour it on. And I see Poirier winning this by TKO, either late in the third or early in the fourth. I'm going to go by early fourth here for a TKO victory for Dustin Poirier. I'm going to be playing him in all formats. I'm going to have a ton of ownership of him, probably in the range of 75%. Definitely in my cash lineup, and I'm probably going to fade Johnson. He doesn't have a ton of knockout power, so I don't see him knocking Poirier out, and I think Poirier is going to stay smart. So I'm going to fade Johnson in this fight, even though the price is attractive typically for Johnson, but I'm not touching it. So all Poirier here.
All right, Chris, on the main event, what you got here?
Yeah, everything that Ryan just touched on, I can add a little bit more to that here and just basically say that Michael Johnson doesn't have very good accuracy, a 36% significant strike accuracy. He just throws a lot of wasted punches. And with that low cardio and wasted punches, that just translates into, what you guys have already been talking about. He's not going to do much after a round and a half to 2 rounds there. It's going to be pretty much all Poirier from, from middle of the second round on. And Poirier's got really precise striking, so he's going to hit you where it hurts. And just this is not the fight for Johnson here. He does like to be the underdog. Johnson does like to be the underdog. He's disappointed several times in his career. And so when you think he's got the advantage, he disappoints. But when he doesn't have the advantage, he does kind of surprise you sometimes. So for that reason, I do have to have a couple flyers on him. I cannot fade the guy. Got to take him in a couple flyers at $9,000. I think it's worth it. Me personally, I am not going to be doing much cash, if any cash, on this card. So for somebody like me, I'm going to be able to afford a couple more GPP lineups than these guys. So I can take a risk and throw in a couple lineups with Michael Johnson. But I don't think he wins. I'm just doing it because he's got that upside because, he, again, like I said, he just likes to be the underdog. He had a terrible decision loss versus Darius. Sherdog actually gave it the worst decision loss of the year. And his loss to Nate Diaz was a close loss. He didn't it's not like he got destroyed. It was a tough fight against a rejuvenated Nate Diaz. So this isn't somebody that can be completely written off, I don't think. and that's kind of where I'm going to leave it at right now.
Yeah, I don't think we're writing off Johnson. I just feel like stylistically, especially with Poirier peaking as an athletic prime and in a better division for him, it's a bad matchup for Johnson because whenever Johnson faces a better striker, he ends up on the wrong side of a decision or he gets finished. I mean, sometimes when he faces worse strikers, he still ends up getting, like a fluke loss to a guy like Jason Madadi who caught him with a head kick and then finished him with a rear neck choke. I mean, that is right up a guy like Dustin Poirier's alley. Not that he throws a lot of kicks, but he has that sort of flash potential here. Michael Johnson is a bit susceptible. He does have 10 losses for a reason. I'm big on Poirier for this card. Personally, I'm going to fade Johnson just because I'm so big on Poirier, and I'm trying to make a cash lineup somewhere in here, and I think Poirier fits into one. But I agree with Chris. This is a GPP-friendly card, and this fight is a perfect example of that. All right, with that said, moving on to the co-main, we've got Uriah Hall coming in at 9,400. Mr. Inconsistency is fighting Derek Brunson at an even 10K. The national champion, he's not in the WWE, national champion wrestler, I believe, or is he just an All-American? Ridge will enlighten us on that in a second. But Brunson, to me, has to be the big favorite here, even more than his price would indicate. Hall is so inconsistent with most of his action. The only thing I can ever do is take a GPP flyer on him. Hell, I'd even take one against Anderson Silva. He's got that sort of upside with his spinning attacks and crazy angles that he chooses to take when he actually throws a punch. But Brunson in a big way here, in my opinion. Chris, we'll let you go first on this one. What do you got here on Hall versus Brunson?
Yeah, I mean, Hall absolutely has some GPP upside. It's been 10 months since he's last fought after having 5 fights in 2015, but, that was a very tough fight against Robert Whittaker. He took a lot out of him there. But Hall, he's an amazing precise striker as well, great kicks, flashy kicks too, but that flashy kicks gets him in trouble sometimes. He is tough. He's kind of a hard guy to finish, but he's just not the greatest at takedown defense and not the greatest on his back either, which kind of plays into Derek Brunson's strengths. I believe, again, Ryan's going to update us both on here. Maybe we should have gone to him first, but whatever. At least he could have at least cleared this up for us. But I believe he's a Division II wrestler, a 3-time All-American there. And the guy has absolutely the potential to take this guy down almost at will and just beat on him, and it's just – If he wants to stand on his feet and fight with him, he has improved his punches and all that stuff, but I think that's a trap for him, and it's going to get him in trouble. So I'll leave the rest up to Ryan to kind of get into all that.
Yes, please, Ryan, enlighten us on the credentials of Derek Brunson and your take on this fight.
All right, yeah. So Brunson is one of my favorite fighters in the UFC right now. Chris was right. He's a Division II, 3-time All-American. He went to UNC Pembroke. I have quite a few friends that attended and wrestled there. But yeah, he's the real deal. I mean, he's coming up right now, and he looks great. Even in his loss to Yoel Romero, he actually out-wrestled Yoel Romero in that fight until he got caught in the 3rd round. And it's really impressive what he's been able to do. He's a big, powerful guy. His hands have improved a lot, and that's the one thing that I think scares me in this fight a little bit is that his hands have improved. He's getting the confidence on his feet, and this is a very dangerous fight. I mean, if he decides he wants to start trying to trade with Uriah Hall, I think he can do it, but that flash knockout power is always there with Uriah Hall, and that's a very dangerous thing to think about. But I think he takes this fight and stays smart with it, grinds Hall out. I think it looks a lot like the Lorenz Larkin fight when Brunson beat him. He took him down and just beat him up on the ground and cruised to a pretty easy decision. And I think he does that here as well. For me, I'm going to have Brunson in my cash lineup for sure. I will have a couple shares of Uriah Hall in GPP. Just because that KO power is just so immense. Those kicks are phenomenal. But yeah, and where Chris isn't playing a lot of cash, I actually will be playing a lot of cash in this card. I think the value is, there's some really good value that we'll touch on later. So for me, I mean, if anyone needs help with cash lineups, I'm definitely willing to help if you guys DM. And I know Chris will be there for GPP help if you guys want that. But I think the podcast should take care of all of that.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a lot at your disposal. If you're a fan of the show and you want to hang out with us, feel free. We'll get to that at the end of the show because I'm excited to tell you guys about our offers. But next up, we have Evan Dunham coming in at 10-7, the Oregonian coming in against the short notice replacement, Rick Glenn, former World Series of Fighting champion at 145 actually. He's coming in at 8,700, and originally when I first saw this fight, I was big on Glenn. I liked him for his KO upside against a guy like Dunham who's taken quite a few shots in his career. But the more I looked at this fight and the more I analyzed it, the more I felt like Dunham's reach and his ability to throw straight shots down the middle, his wrestling overall. I think he's going to get on top of Glenn, smother him, get the neck, choke him out pretty efficiently here. Even with a 10-7 price tag, I feel like there's some value on Dunham, and there's certainly a GPP flyer or so on Glenn. Ridge, what's your take on this here third fight down?
I really like this fight for Glenn to kind of see where he's at this early in his career. He's a young prospect. He's looked good in the World Series of Fighting, which is a respectable. It's a respectable fight organization. I mean, it's nothing great, but it's definitely better than your regional scene. And he's held his own. He's a tall guy for this division. He's got really good striking. He's very accurate, which helps his power. He'll hit you on the butt and then put you out. And his ground game, his offensive ground game isn't very good, but his submission defense is actually it's pretty impressive from what I've seen. Now Evan Dunham, that's his world. I mean, he loves being on the ground, and with 16 fights in the UFC, he's learned how to throw his hands as well. I mean, he's a great all-around fighter. He'll sit there and bang in the pocket, but I think in this fight, he definitely doesn't want to lose to a new up-and-comer. He's going to fight smart. He's going to get this to the ground. He's going to just wear Glenn out, ride it to definitely an easy decision if he doesn't sub him in the third round. Dunham is a great choice this week for cash and GPPs. For that long range and the KO upside, I'm probably going to throw a flyer out on Glenn, but really only just one, mainly because I think Dunham just really rides this pretty easily.
All right, Chris, is it a clean sweep for Evan Dunham?
Yeah, I think Dunham wins, but I think it's by decision though. I highly doubt it happens by knockout personally. I just don't see the power in him. He has improved his boxing skills because before the Lazone fight, he actually went to the Roy Jones Jr. gym, and he showed improvement in his hand speed, but it's not knocking anybody out. It's a lot of jabs, a lot of 1-2s, a lot of just straights, which is good. It's fast. That's an intelligent way of fighting. He's an intelligent fighter. And I think that does match up well with Rick Glenn, who does tend to leave his hands outside, almost kind of defending against hooks and things like that. So maybe he changes his style a little bit. Maybe he changes his hands for this fight a little bit. But from what I've seen on tape, that he does leave his hands out a little bit, kind of defending for the hooks. And you're not going to get a lot of that from Dunham. So he could be in trouble if that stands up on the ground there. If that stays up on the ground, excuse me. Glenn does have the better striking power of the two, no doubt about that. And Glenn doesn't mind, if this is going to be a fight, Glenn is willing to pin a guy against the cage and try for the takedown or striking, but I don't think he's going to have a great advantage of that. I think Dunham wins this fight by decision. I don't see a big upside in a stoppage personally, but I think he's got a great shot at winning. So I do agree with Ryan that he's at least cash worthy. Not sure how much I agree with on the GPP part, just because I think I might want more points than that. So.
All right. moving on to the next fight on the card, we have Ron Carnero at 10-1 coming in against Kenny Robertson. Mr. Value on this card, in my opinion, in some ways. 9,300 for Kenny Robertson. I like Kenny Robertson to be just a little bit better than Ron Carnero everywhere except for the jiu-jitsu department. I think that if he's able to, use his awkward, lengthy sort of punching style to throw Carnero off, Carnero's been trying to improve so much in his own striking that it's more of a conventional style versus a Kenny Robertson who throws in such an awkward way. Plus his wrestling, I think, is good enough to keep Carnero standing and away from the jits. I like Robertson for his value at 9,300. Chris, what's your take here on Carnero versus Robertson? Are you with me on Robertson here, or do you think otherwise?
No, I absolutely love Robertson in this. Easy by decision, if not by a stoppage, probably a later stoppage. Carnero does have, he's got 3 Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournaments that he's won, and he won that 3 fights in one night tournament that I'm blanking on the name of. Apologize again, guys, for not knowing that. But
it had Jim Ross. That's all that matters.
Yeah, had Jim Ross, and he fought against the guy that I went to high school with. So that's all I remember, Brock Larson. So, hey, that's what I remember. So who cares about the stats? Who cares about that stuff? Jim Ross hosted the thing. So good old JR. Anyway, Kenny Robertson, he's around a 53% accuracy with a significant strikes, which I believe is 4th highest. I might have to be corrected on that in his division. So he's going to hit you, and he's going to hit you with a lot of volume at 4.1 significant strikes per minute. He has been training with Matt Hughes individually, actually. Same guy. He actually went to the same college as Matt Hughes. We're wrestling. And he's also training with the Jackson camp. So he's getting amazing training right now. So he's been working on his hands, and it's been shown in his last couple fights. So, and another thing that I was really impressed with Robertson is when he's going against Ben Saunders, he showed amazing defense against Ben Saunders, who is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and Eddie Bravo just raves about Saunders, loves this guy. And when I watched him, he displayed great defense against a guy like that. And if he can defend himself against a black belt like Ben Saunders, I see no reason why he can't defend himself against Carnero. So I see that even though Carnero has the advantage in Brazilian and Jiu-Jitsu, I don't think it's going to factor in anything in this fight. It's not going to matter. He's going to get out of whatever Carnero tries to do, and Robertson wins this fight very easily.
Yeah, I can't see any other avenue other than a Robertson mistake, maybe in a scramble that leads to a Carnero opportunity. Originally, I thought Carnero maybe by sub, but, the more I look at this fight, Kenny Robertson is the ever-improving fighter. He's the guy who's constantly trying to make himself better. He wants to be a contender, and I think he's going to get there. I think eventually we'll see Kenny Robertson with the 10K plus price tag. With that said, we're moving on to the next fight on the card, which is a fairly even matchup. What's that?
Brandon, I would like to touch on that fight a little bit, I guess.
Oh, Ridge.
Sorry, you got to listen to me here.
I'm so sorry. Yes, please give us your 2 cents.
Yeah, I like this matchup, so I did want to touch on this one. There's a couple that you guys can skip me on, but I like this one.
I apologize.
So, Ron Carnero this is his 2nd stint in the UFC. He hasn't been in since 2009, and in that time off, he has really taken a step up, I think, in the way he fights. Chris was touching on, Ben Saunders being a black belt, but the one difference here is Carnero is a world champion in jiu-jitsu. So it is a slightly, he's a little bit better in that department. His striking has gotten a little bit better, or a lot better, since his first stint. And he's 1-1 in his 2 fights back. His 1 loss was to Brunson, which we've already talked about. I mean, Brunson's a beast. And Carnero wasn't doing that terrible until he got caught on the button, and Brunson just ground and pounded him up against the fence, and that was it. Kenny Robertson, like has already been said, is a Division I former wrestler. He's definitely improved his boxing, and it's kind of ugly to watch Robertson box. His head movement is kind of ugly, but everything is just deceptively effective. He uses his range very well, and he's got pretty good power, and he throws a ton of volume. And I think that's where some of the power comes from. I think this is going to go to personally, I think it's going to go to a pretty close decision that Robertson just grinds out. He's going to throw a ton of strikes. He's going to land a ton of strikes. So even in a decision loss, for me, Kenny Robertson at his price, I think he pays it off because I think he's going to land somewhere between 100 and 120 significant strikes in this fight. So really the question is, can Juan Carnero hold up to that damage or not? We'll see. You know, he's getting pretty old. He's definitely far in his career. So while Carnero has the upside of a submission in this fight if Robertson makes a mistake, which is definitely possible, I don't necessarily see it happening. So I'll be having quite a few ownerships of Robertson in both cash, and I think he's a sneaky GPP play at the same time. I may actually throw 1 or 2 GPP flyers out on Carnero just for that finishing upside of this because of his submission skills. So I'm not going to completely fade Carnero, but I will have very, very little ownership.
All right. So sorry about that. Let's see. Now that we're finally moving on to the next spot on the card, we've got Chris Wade versus Islam Makhachev. We've all gone back and forth on this fight so many times. Such an intriguing fight. But at the end of the day, I think we all kind of came up with a consensus on this. Makhachev is coming in at 9,800. Chris Wade is coming in at 9,600. We've got the Sambo world champion versus the D3 wrestler. Ridge, go ahead and lead us off on this fight. Tell me what you think about these two guys.
All right. So I think this is a good fight. Both these guys are coming off losses. They're both young, up-and-comers, and they're definitely going to be wanting to get a win. So I think we're going to see a pretty good fight here. Like Brandon said, this is Chris Wade is a former Division III wrestler. So he's got a good wrestling base. He's got good kickboxing. You know, he's a good all-around fighter, and he's an athletic guy. He does tend to fade as the fight goes on. You can definitely see him slow down. I wouldn't say it's to the point of just complete gassing, but he definitely slows down. Makhachev, on the other hand, he's a Sambo-style grappler, which really transfers well into the MMA world because it's all clinch work, it's all throws, and as we all know by watching tons of MMA, if you're clinching, you can definitely be thrown. These Sambo guys they're all usually pretty tough, good opponents when they get to the UFC. His boxing it's good. It's not great. It's not bad. But I do think Wade has the advantage in the striking department because he can vary it up with kicks and punches. But I don't think it stays standing. I think it'll be competitive while Wade is full go. Once he starts wearing down, because Makhachev is going to be all over him, grinding out, trying to make this a grappling affair, it's just going to wear Wade down. And eventually, in the second and third rounds, I think Makhachev is going to start to get his way. And so I think Makhachev takes this by decision. While it's close in the first, Wade may take the first. After that, I think Makhachev just wears him down and beats him. So for me, Makhachev I think he's a decent cash play. I'm not going to be having him in any GPPs because I think his upside is very limited due to the decision victory. And I'm probably going to have a flyer on Wade just because of his kicks. I think he does have KO upside. I know that my counterparts don't necessarily agree with it, but I'm gonna have a flyer on Wade due to the KO upside, but that's about it. Just the 1 or 2 GPP flyers.
All right, Chris, Sambo versus wrestling. Who do you favor?
Yeah, I definitely favor Makhachev here, but since our last practice podcast that we just did, I've kind of come around a little bit on having Wade in a couple flyers here. You know, he does got good power. He's got good ground and pound. You know, he does got that amateur kickboxing background, so he's got good, crisp, clean punches to go with everything. So he just doesn't have the best cardio. And, with his wrestling background, too, if he tries to do any type of clinching with Islam here, it could be problems. Again, we've all talked about here, he's a Sambo world champion. This and Sambo just translates so well to MMA. We're all you're going to hear this from us anytime a new Russian guy comes into MMA. We're going to pretty much say the same thing. If he's in Sambo, we're going to say exactly. So get used to us hearing us saying these words. Islam, he's got heavy hands, so he can lay somebody out if he connects. So I'm not going to say he can't win by knockout, but yeah, this is going to be a good fight here. This is good classic wrestler versus Sambo, and I look forward to watching this fight. I'm going to give Islam the decision win here and not have crazy amount of flyers on either, but I definitely got to put a couple of them because they both could potentially win by a finish. So,
yeah, I think both these guys are young prospects. I think it's a bad matchup for Wade. I'm going to fade Wade. That's my motto for this fight, fade Wade. For Makhachev, he's the younger guy. He's the more improving guy. I feel like he's definitely my pick here by decision, and a strong decision. I'm with Ridge on this for cash. Moving on, we have Chaz Skelly coming in at 10-3 against Maximo Blanco at 9,100. This is a matchup between a durable, long, lanky guy and a short, stocky, athletic, explosive, dynamic, potential, just so much upside on Blanco, yet the worst fight IQ I've ever seen. Most terrible decisions ever made in MMA have happened by Maximo Blanco, with the exception of Usman Paul or Paul Harris. But let's see. Chris, I'm going to have you lead off this one. Your take on Skelly versus Blanco here. Do you see any value at 9,100?
I mean, he is so talented that I think that maybe it isn't just bad IQ. It's just, well, of course this is bad IQ, but he's just arrogant. He's just like, hey, this guy's an awesome striker, so I'm going to strike with this guy. Even though he can't defend takedowns and he's not a good wrestler, I'm going to strike with this guy anyways and show the world that I can beat anybody at their strength, as opposed to pretty much every other fighter out there who watches tape of their opponent and says, oh, that's his weakness. I'm going to attack his weakness with my strength. Yeah, that doesn't happen with Blanco. So even if his coaches, who just don't seem to enjoy this, they don't like that aspect. You sit here and I couldn't even imagine being his coach. You sit here and review all the tape in the world on your opponent, and then he just ignores it and just does what he wants to do to, I don't know, put on a show or whatever it is. But he's got 2 disqualification losses and has had points taken away from him in quite a few other fights. So he's just, like you said, he's not the most intelligent fighter out there. Chaz Skelly, he's just another one of those guys who likes to improve. Before the Allers fight, he actually came out to Colorado to train his hands, and after 1 week, he felt his improvement was so good that he had to come back. So I like the fact that I kind of wonder, too, how bad his striking really was, how he feels his striking really was before that, but whatever. He's got good recovery from hard shots, and I remember when the fight with Souza, he took a vicious shot, and he recovered almost immediately. But he likes to clinch. He's got good jiu-jitsu skills. Not quite as good of a wrestler as Blanco, but again, Blanco probably doesn't really care about that, and he's just going to go out there and fight the guy. Blanco, national champion wrestling in 3 countries and has all these amazing things about him. But like you just said, Brandon, he's going to break your heart because he's not going to fight smart. So on to Ryan to go ahead and give his take on this fun fight here.
Yeah,
all
first
right,
of all,
go for it.
Brandon, how dare you mention he who shall not be named? He was thrown out of the UFC for a reason.
That's right. Radio edit.
But no, if anything, this is definitely going to be an exciting fight to watch. Chaz Skelly has the perfect nickname. He's His nickname is the Scrapper, and that's exactly what he is. He's a scrapper. I mean, he's got, he's not a phenomenal MMA wrestler, but he's a decent one. He's got deceptive bottom submission game. He loves leg locks. He's got decent striking. He's long and rangy. But Blanco is a phenomenal wrestler, like Chris touched on. He's really good at, and he's explosive. He's a great athlete. He's got big power in his hands. I wouldn't call him the best striker because, like has already been mentioned, his fight IQ is pretty terrible. He loves to just bum rush people, which is not a smart thing to do in this sport. And he leaves his chin wide open and up high. So I do see Skelly staying smart in this, grinding out a decision victory. And with the way Blanco leaves his chin wide open, he could even knock him out. It's probably not going to happen. Blanco's got a pretty good chin. But for me, both these guys are GPP only just because of the unknown. You have no idea what Blanco is going to come out. Is he going to come out and live up to his pedigree or not? I mean, the potential is there for him to be great, but it just hasn't showed yet. So I'm going to definitely have GPPs on both, but I'm going to limit my exposure on Blanco because of the fight IQ. And I'll probably have maybe 25 or 30% on Skelly, as I think he takes this. But the the knockout upside just is very limited in this fight. I think it's just going to be a stand-up and brawl type affair.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on one more thing here with Blanco is, he had a fight with Hooker where he threw 132 significant strikes versus him. I mean, that if he can get even a decision win with 132 significant strikes, that's a lot of points right there too. So I don't want to completely throw the guy out. I mean, the guy has potential to obviously get you some DFS points, and we are in DFS, and not necessarily all about winning and losing, although we want the decision win. Of course, we want the win because we get win bonuses, but sometimes you have to look at stats like that. And I'm blanking. What is Blanco's price again?
9,100.
9,100. So, yeah, a guy who can throw 132 significant strikes in a fight at 9,100 is absolutely playable for at least GPP purposes when you're trying to fit in other guys. However, we're going to get into the card a little bit later and discuss options who are significantly cheaper and have better options. So Blanco for GPP purposes only, but I have Chaz Skelly winning this fight.
All right. Next up, we got a matchup between the highest priced guy on the entire card, Sam Cecilia, coming in at 11-2 versus Gabriel Benitez. I personally think that Sam Cecilia's old man strength and his smart decision thinking is going to win him this fight. He knows it's a fight that he has to win in order to keep his contract. I'm a big fan of his one-punch knockout power. He's got, like I said, the old man strength, granite fists. Benitez is a smart fighter himself, but he's a jack of all trades, master of little. I'm not a big fan of him being in the UFC. I thought that most of the fighters from his season of Tough weren't UFC quality, but they keep managing to hang around somehow. Rich, what's your take here on Cecilia versus Benitez?
Again, another fight that I think is going to be pretty exciting to watch. Cecilia is a guy with a good wrestling base. He's got good offensive boxing, but he lacks defensive boxing. It's improved, but he takes a lot of punches to the face and body. Now, in this fight, like Brandon said, I think he is going to be smart. He knows he needs a win. Even if he loses this, I think personally he'll stay around for at least another fight because he is an exciting fighter to watch. But I think in his mind, he wants and knows that he needs a win pretty badly. I mean, I think he has 10 fights in the UFC, and I think he's something like 6-4. It's not an overly great record. He might even be 5-5. I can't remember off the top of my head. But his offensive boxing, his power in his hands are immense. I mean, he throws huge power. He's got a good chin, and he's definitely willing to stand in the pocket and bang. Benitez, on the other hand, he's also a solid striker. He throws good punches, good kicks. but his takedown defense is pretty much non-existent. So I think Cecilia can take this to the fight or to the ground whenever he wants, and he should. The one thing he does have to watch out for is Benitez has a really good guillotine, and that's about all I can say about his ground game. But the competition that Benitez has fought is pretty poor, especially compared to Cecilia. Cecilia has fought some good fighters, and Benitez took a step up in competition one time against Andre Fili, and he got knocked out. And I feel Fili is probably on the same level as Cecilia competition-wise. So for me, I think Cecilia cruises to a decision and possibly KOs him because of his big power. I'm not going to touch either one in cash just because of the unknown, but Sam Cecilia, I think, is a fantastic GPP play. His price is really high, which is why I'm not touching him in cash, but GPP for sure. His KO upside and his power in his hands, it's undeniable. And Benitez, for me, is a fade.
All right. Well, I personally, I like Benitez a little bit for a couple shares, but it's not for a lot because everything that you just said, Ryan, I agree with. Cecilia's got to win this fight. He's got good takedowns, and Benitez doesn't have good takedown defense. But Cecilia also doesn't have very good cardio. So one thing I have noticed about Benitez is he's not very good on the ground, but he's at least active on the ground. So maybe he does enough on the ground to at least get to the second round, wear down Cecilia a little bit. Benitez does have good strikes, like you said. He's got great body kicks too. He's gonna just drill you right in the solar plex, right in the gut, over and over. And they're precise too. So he's got the ability to have the knockout. I do believe he has KO upside in this fight. So Cecilia has been stopped before, and no reason why. I don't say no reason because there's obviously not the greatest chance. Cecilia is favored heavily for a reason, but I'm still going to have a couple flyers on Benitez. That's just personally where I feel that might be more gut than anything because I don't know. But if I was making cash lineups or if I was just trying to fade as many people and get rid of if I didn't have a big bankroll, I'm eliminating Benitez, but since I'm willing to spend a little bit more on GPPs this week, I'm willing to make a couple lineups with Benitez.
All right. Moving on, the next fight on the card we got is Belal Muhammad making his second attempt into the UFC after a short notice debut that came up short himself, I guess you could say. It was a short notice fight that he came up short in. He's fighting Augusto Montano, a guy, in my opinion, who shouldn't even be in the UFC. He's really tough to watch. He's long and sloppy, and ever since he stopped fighting regional shows in Mexico, he doesn't look like he belongs in the UFC. Belal Muhammad, on the other hand, is a pretty decent prospect, and I feel like this is the kind of fight where at 10,200 he's right on price, and it could be worthwhile for maybe a lineup or two. Ridge, what's your take on Belal Muhammad versus Augusto Montano?
Yeah, so I don't think I'm as completely aligned as Brandon on this one with Augusto Montano. He has shown some flashes in the past of being a solid fighter. He's long, he's rangy, he's got a fairly awkward style, but he comes with pretty good angles sometimes when he fights aggressively. Now the problem is in his last fight against Cathal Pendred, who is a straight grappler. I mean, he's a very good grappler, but his striking is really hard to watch. He's stiff, he's slow. And Augusto Montano got outstruck by Cathal Pendred, which should never happen. Basically, Montano turned into a track star. He ran around the ring the entire fight, got hit a few times, which was enough to win rounds for Pendred. And Pendred won a terrible decision to watch. I mean, it was so hard to watch. But if he can get back to the form, he's formidable, I guess, kind of. Belal Muhammad, on the other hand, he's exciting to watch. He's got very crisp striking. He's a good boxer. He can get in the pocket and beat you up inside. He even though he's a little bit shorter, he knows his range. He's got a good jab, and he's got, I wouldn't say he has good power. I mean, I think he's 8-1, and 6 of his wins are by decision. But his volume can definitely wear a guy down. I mean, his TKO upside is there just for the amount of punches that he throws and lands. He's got a good wrestling base. He doesn't use it. He hasn't had to use it, except in one fight against Steve Carl, where he used his takedown defense just to keep it on his feet and beat him up. And the fight, his first fight in the UFC, even though he lost it, he was impressive. I mean, he fought a good fighter in Alan Jouban and put up a great fight, almost got knocked out, but each time he got knocked down, he immediately recovered, and he was smart and tied up Jouban so he couldn't hit him anymore and just weathered the storm. And in the third round, he looked phenomenal. So I think Bilal Muhammad wins this fight. My problem is I think Augusto Montano runs again, and it's a pretty boring decision. So I'm going to have no shares of Montano at all. And Bilal Muhammad, I'm only going to play in GPPs just because I don't know if he can get his hands on him, then he's going to put up plenty of volume and pay off his price. But the problem is I don't know if he can do that, and I don't know if the striking output's going to be there to pay off his price. So I'll probably have maybe 2 shares of him.
All right, Chris, you taking any shares of Muhammad or Montano?
Yeah, it's tough to take shares of the fight because of exactly what Ryan said. This fight against Pendred was just terrible. Pendred would just sit there and just throw his hands up in the air and stare at the referee like, hey, get this guy to do something. I mean, we've all seen street fights where the guy's kind of running away and everybody who's surrounding the street fight just kind of pushes the guy into the other guy so he gets beat up. You almost needed that in this fight. It was that boring of a fight. You almost needed the crowd around him like a pit fighting, like if you guys played Pit Fighter or the arcade game or something like that back in the day. You know, you got the crowd behind. All right, got to push this guy back in there. That's the only way you're going to get Montano to fight in the UFC, I swear. You know, in his first fight in the UFC, he won, but he was really stiff. He just, I don't know. I mean, he got the win. He got the knockout. Great, but since his move to the UFC, he just, you know, and he hasn't looked good. Although he hasn't fought in over a year now, so maybe he's gotten back to what he was supposed to do. He composes himself, and he had good training during this time, and maybe there's something that he's able to do. He's able to take the fight to Muhammad, which would be a great, entertaining fight. And Muhammad, you know, 5.13 significant strikes per minute, you know, and he's going to throw a lot of punches. He's got great heart, great chin, and like Ryan touched on against Jouban there, you know, his first real true test. He kept taking shot after shot after shot and just kept recovering from them every time. When he comes to the third round, he finds his range and just starts tagging him and really looked like he belonged in the UFC. So I got to favor Muhammad a lot in this fight. However, it would be very entertaining to see Montano come back and do something here. However, there are suspicions that he was potentially on performance-enhancing drugs, something. We'll just say it right here. And for that reason, you got to question whether he belongs in the UFC or whether he just wants to get out. So I'll just kind of leave it at that for now with you, Brandon. And
yeah, I definitely think that Montano is a questionable fighter. I'm not invested in him in any way for this card. 0 shares, big time fade. And Muhammad, I'm probably going to keep around 20 or 30%. I don't see how I could have that much more of that than that because the rest of the fights on this card are amazing. Speaking of amazing, we've got Joey Gomez coming in at 8,900 against Jose Alberto Quinones at 10-5. And the only thing I can do is scratch my head and hope that a bunch of question marks appear because I can't figure out the pricing on this one. To me, Joey Gomez is nothing more than a victim of bad luck. You know, he took a short notice fight for his UFC debut against Rob Font, who's arguably a top 15 guy, And even though he showed a lot of heart, he was just frustrated the whole time because he wasn't able to get off and really match Font's timing, and it left him frustrated. And he ended up, what I believe had an adrenaline dump after the first round, and he ended up succumbing to strikes in the third. And even then he argued with the ref that it was a bad stoppage. But I'm huge on Gomez for this fight. I think that he's a really good blue-chip prospect, and he's fighting a guy in Quinones who doesn't do much except bounce around. And, you could argue he maybe has a couple of good shots he knows how to throw, but overall, Quinones is another one of these guys that I believe has no business being in the UFC. Chris, how about you lead us off on this one? Gomez versus Quinones. I mean, what you got?
Yeah, Quinones just literally hops around like Tigger from Winnie the Pooh, I mean, his theme song might as well be bouncy, 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 fun, 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 fun. I mean, that's what he looks like when he's in the ring. That's all he does, He's really stiff, got bad technique. He is with the new camp, so hoping some improvement's going to show up where he loses some of that bounce, because it's really annoying to watch. Joey Gomez, though, former Marine who joined Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is kind of an outlet, after a second stint in Iraq, needed something to release his anger or whatever, I guess I really don't understand. I wasn't in the military, but, it's what he did. He joined Jiu-Jitsu, and he just got beat up at first, but still loved it, kept coming back and just wanted to learn more and more about it. And he just kind of got that, I just want to be the best kind of guy, He's got really good timing on his punches, good snap, great power combinations, both hands, too. Just knockout power, too. He's not Joey the knockout king Gomez for no reason. I mean, the guy he's got power, He's got good scrambling ability, too, good elbows. I love this guy. I can't wait to watch this fight. I think he knocks out Quinones in the first round, unless Quinones had this amazing turnaround in training here, which I don't see happening. And he's probably going to be the pick of the night for all of us, so...
All right. Rich, what's your take on this fight?
Yep. So everything that's been said, I mostly agree with. Quinones is terrible to watch. Like Chris said, he just bounces up and down the entire fight when he's on his feet, and it is ridiculously annoying. So I'm not looking forward to watching that. But since he has moved to Alliance MMA, his BJJ and his wrestling game has gotten better. It's not top-notch by any means, nor is any of his game. And that's about the only nice thing that I can say about him, because now we're on to Joey Gomez, who is a legit fighter. He has a wrestling base. He was a good wrestler in high school. I know that's not any kind of college credentials or anything like that, but he has the Marine background, so he's a tough guy. He has the wrestling base, which he uses to keep the fight on the feet. Or if he does get taken down, he's pretty good at getting right back up. He also has a boxing background. His hands are crisp. He throws good, accurate punches. He's got power. And in his octagon debut, like Brandon was saying, he took a fight on short notice. He had to cut a lot of weight in just a couple of weeks for it, and I think it went poorly, and it really showed in his fight. I mean, his energy just did not look the same. He was also fighting a former training partner, so you mix all that stuff together, former training partner, your first fight in the UFC, a bad weight cut, and I can see why a guy comes out and is just doesn't have that energy that he usually has. I mean, it's a lot of pressure put on him. But I think it was a good experience for him. I think he's going to come out in the second fight and just show what he's really made of. I don't necessarily – I'm not banking on a KO here. I think it's very, very possible, but I don't think it's a guarantee here. But with the price that Joey Gomez is at $8,900, for me, he is a fantastic play in any format. He's gonna pay off his price. Quinones is a tough guy. He's tough to put away. But so Gomez definitely at least cruises to a decision. But like Chris said, he's probably going to knock him out. And with that said, Quinones is one of the easiest fades on this card, especially at the 10-5 price.
100%. I can't think of a better value play. In fact, we're going to make Gomez our value play of the week. And anybody who's not a member of DFS Prime Lineups or in the gut room, and you just listen to this podcast, that is the one pick we're going to give you. Joey Gomez, 8,900. Lock it in. Have a lot. All right, moving on. We've got Randy Brown coming in on this sophomore fight in the UFC at 10-9 against Eric Montano, the younger of the Montanos, I believe. Somehow a tough winner. This is another question mark fight for me. Another matchup that seems pretty one-sided. There isn't a lot of people that you can look at this card and say that's going to be a first-round KO win. But for me, Randy Brown is the guy with the most potential here for a first-round KO victory. I can't even think of a single nice thing to possibly say about Montano's game. So I guess I'll just pass it along. Ridge, tell me what you think. Do you got Brown in a big way like I do, or do you think Montano has a chance?
Okay, so I'm gonna attempt to say something nice about Montano. This is hard, by the way. There's not much, but he did win the tough Latin America 2, which was kind of fluky. All of his wins were pretty fluky. But his wrestling isn't the worst, I guess. He's got good power. That's about it. He's slow. He's out of shape. And he's definitely not going to have any kind of reach advantage or size advantage in this fight like he has had in the past. And Randy Brown is just going to come out. He was discovered on Looking for a Fight. He was the second one after Sage Northcutt. He's 1-1 in the UFC. The fight he lost, he just, you could tell the stage was too big for him in the first round, and then he started to get comfortable, and you really saw the potential that this kid has. And then in his second fight, he really showed off the potential. So in this fight, I think Randy Brown wins in a big way. I mean, he's 6'3" or 6'4". He's going to keep the distance. He's going to keep it on his feet. He's got decent takedown defense. So Montano's not going to be able to take him down like he's going to want to do. And he's just going to pepper his face whenever he wants with jabs and kicks. And, I mean, he's going to beat up the body. He's going to beat up the face. And, yeah, I definitely think that he's got great KO upside. Randy Brown is going to be in quite a few of my lineups. I'll probably even have him in my cash lineups. And Montano, yeah, another easy fade for me.
All right, Chris, how do you feel?
Yeah, had to have been painful for Dana White to have to give him a contract, Eric Montano a contract after he won the Ultimate Fighter there. Knowing that he's got to give him multiple fights on that contract and give him a six-figure contract, and knowing that he's going to be around for a while. And I don't know, maybe he's mad that he won and wanted to give him this guy named Randy Brown, who is probably going to just beat the snot out of him. I mean, he's a 425, minus 421 favorite for a reason. He's strong, aggressive, good speed, good power, way more technically sound than Montano. And Montano needs a lot of luck here. And if I were him, if I had that kind of luck, I'd just go to a casino. Don't even waste your time cashing it here in that fight. Take it to a casino and cash in big, because you'll probably make a lot more money from it, because that's the kind of luck you're going to need in this fight. I don't think it's going to happen. So I got Brown by knockout, stoppage somehow, probably early.
Yeah, Brown in a big way here. Even at 10-9, it's reasonable. You could have made him the Cecilia price at 11-2, and it would probably still be reasonable. With that said, we're going to move on to the next fight on the card. That's going to be Antonio Cara de Sapo Carlos Jr. versus Leonardo Augusto Lelico Guimarães. How many names do you get in Brazil? It's like 10 or 12. So in this fight, we've got Sapo Jr. coming in at 9,900 and Guimarães coming in at 9,500. Personally, I like Sapo in a big way. He needs to get a sub in the first 5 minutes, or he's going to lose in a bad way. But, that first-round upside isn't there for a lot of guys. And since he's one of the few guys that has the skills and the credentials to pull it off for GPP purposes, I feel like I got to go there. Ridge, what's your take on this fight?
Yep, so Carlos Jr. coming into this, he's a world-class jiu-jitsu guy. He's aggressive on his feet. He tries to get it to the ground very aggressively. And he's a fast starter. Leleco, he's a slow starter. And in this fight, I think it's just a bad matchup. Leleco can take a beating, but I don't necessarily think Carlos Jr. necessarily wants to give him a beating. He wants to submit him. And he's going to come out hard, and I think he's going to take him down and get the first-round submission. With that said, this is definitely a GPP-only play for me with Carlos Jr. Because if he doesn't submit him in the first round, like Brandon said, this is going to be a bad night for him. He gasses quite hard, and Leleco just gets stronger as the fight goes on. So if it gets past the first round, it gets really, really dangerous for Carlos Jr. But for that first round upside, I'm gonna definitely have some exposure to Carlos Jr. in GPPs. Personally, I'm fading Leleco. I don't like the matchup for him, so I'm not gonna have any exposure to Leleco on this one.
All right, Chris, Leleco or Cara de Sapo? How you feeling on this one?
Guess I'm a little confused here. Are we doing a tag team matchup here or a one-on-one fight? You listed so many names, I got confused. Just kidding. I like Junior a lot in this fight, just for the simple fact that he really does have world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills, and there's a lot of hype for him too. You know, he started as a heavyweight and has now moved down 2 classes, so he is big for his weight class. However, Leleco has, before this last fight here, so his second and third previous fights, he fought heavyweights. And he took their best shots, and these guys weren't able to knock him out. You know, people are scared to fight him. You can't beat this guy with, I don't know how you beat this guy other than a decision or whatever. You're not going to knock him out. He's clearly shown that. And he's got a big heart. You know, this is going to be a good fight if this goes past the first round. I think this could be a lot of action for Leleco, and if Junior tires out and he's not able to have good takedowns here because he's tired, this could be an upset. So I'm favoring Junior for a submission in the first round. That's what I'm going to pay for on some GPPs. But at the same time, I'll definitely have some flyers on Leleco for the second or third round potential finish. But more than likely, he could win a decision if Junior really does tire out that badly after the first round. Then we could see a decision win for Leleco from the second and third. Not high chance, but I'm willing to take some flyers on him for that.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. I'm going to have Cara de Sapo just a couple of times for the first round upside because there's not a lot of guys with first round upside on the card. That doesn't mean I'm going to have heavy ownership, probably like 30% really, because of the downside there with Guimaraes stomping him out in the last 2 rounds. With that said, I guess we're going to move on to the last fight of the night. It's Alejandro Perez coming against Alberto Morales. Morales at 8,400. I love this price tag. 11,000 for Perez. I have no idea what's going on here. Blue chip prospect, 6-0. Not as much upside as Gomez in my opinion, but right there with him. I mean, you can't deny the price tag. Ridge, you bring us home last fight of the night. What you got?
So I like this matchup. I think it's fair. Morales is definitely a young and hot prospect. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He's good on his feet. As for Perez, he's a decent striker. He's not a great grappler. He got out-grappled by Quinones for the most part, which is pretty embarrassing. But on his feet, he beat up Quinones, which I get it isn't saying much. We already talked trash about him earlier tonight. But for your first fight in the UFC, I think this is a good fight for Morales to prove what he's made of. And it's a fair fight. I think it's going to be a lot closer than what my counterparts think it's going to be. Morales has all the tools for sure. How does he handle the big stage? That's the real question. If he comes out and he handles it well, he should win this fight pretty easily. but Perez is not a pushover. So Perez is a tough dude. I see Morales winning this by a decision, and at his price point, he's a great play for any format you want to put him in. At 8,400, it is really tough to beat the value you're going to get there. If this stays on the feet, there's going to be a ton of punches thrown, and Morales, I think, has a chance for a knockout. Perez doesn't have that much power, so there's really not much danger for Morales getting knocked out. Can he lose a decision? Absolutely. But at 8,400, I'll definitely take that chance any day. I think the striking output's going to be there. Perez isn't going to run from him. They could definitely stand in the pocket and bang a few times. So for me, it's going to be a pretty exciting fight, I think. I'm going to definitely have some shares on Morales for both cash and GPP, and I'm probably going to fade Perez here. I just don't see the upside in taking it.
All right, Chris, how do you feel?
Yeah, I would definitely like Morales for his price tag. I mean, he's making his UFC debut, but he'll be more physical and more powerful of the two. He's a better athlete, and he'll have better hands, but not better kicks. He's definitely going to have better jiu-jitsu experience by quite a bit. Perez's weakness is definitely in his grappling. He's a pretty good boxer, but he leaves himself open a lot for counter strikes. So he's gonna, if it stays on his feet, he's definitely got a chance to take a counter shot. So it does look like he's worked on his wrestling quite a bit, submission defense and takedown defense since his last fights and stuff like that. So I do expect some progression to still happen in this fight. So I do agree with Ryan, actually. I do think this is a lot closer of a fight, and even Vegas has this with Perez only being favored at a 115. So this is going to be a close fight. But, hey, 8,400, I believe Morales' price is. That's amazing. I'll take that price tag any day, win or lose. Preferably win, but, hey, it's MMA.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this card, guys, is not often do we get multiple options around 9,000 and lower that we can actually bet on. I mean, usually these guys around this price are just out of reach. There's no logic to it, but we're finally getting some luck here, and I feel like this is a really good opportunity to capitalize. And with that said, if you're not already a member of DFS Prime lineups and hanging out with us in the gut room and discussing all this fun DFS life that we all enjoy, please do. Please stop by, on Twitter if you can. Visit Prime's website. See whoever's on Facebook. I know Prime is. Chris, I think you are. Just say hi to us. Ask about our promotions. We'll give you a free week. You can come in and hang out. We do it all. We got the baseball dailies right now. We got NFL going strong. Already had a strong week one. Coming up, we've got NBA, we've got NHL. I mean, with MMA taking on Saturdays and NFL taking on Sundays, it's the DFS life in the fall right now. So please hit us up if there's anything you need for your DFS wants. Come join the group, be a part of the fun. Guys, do you have anything you want to add?
It is important to follow us just because we are recording this on Thursday. We still got the weigh-ins tomorrow and potential elevator rides that could injure an opponent on Saturdays. It happens, guys. There are dangerous elevators out there that are out there trying to take out your MMA fighters that you picked. And I watched Holloway be owned in almost 10 to 15% in cash this last week when he was out. So obviously not everybody got the word on that. We're going to inform you. We're going to keep you up to date on that stuff. So it's very important to follow us on this type of stuff. So, yeah. And the other thing I want to say is I put out a trivia question on Twitter, and nobody's been able to answer it correctly. So if you're still listening to this, the answer is 16. I'm giving out my own personal picks for 1 month for free by answering it. Just follow, and you don't even have to be a member of Prime. I will give you my own personal picks for a month. So,
yes, please hit us up. Say hi at Ridgers10, at BloodRain39, at Brandon Arcade, at Gutline, at DFS Prime Lineups. Ridge, you got anything you want to add before we go?
Yeah, in these rooms we give you a lineup to start out. We give you a 3 fighters that we're going to feel you should have in your lineup, whether it's cash or GPP, and we'll probably give you a 3-pack for each one. And then we're in there all the time to help you guys build from there. I mean, if you can't figure it out from the podcast, or you can't figure it out from the cheat sheets that are available that we write up, we're there to talk you through it to help you guys out. So, if you join, you get those perks. If you just listen to the podcast, you're on your own. I think we give good information, but I also think that we have strong plays that we feel you should really have in your lineups, and we're there to help you complete these lineups come the weekend.
Yeah, we are.
And I want to add one more thing too, guys.
Please do.
There's a few websites out there that are doing what we do, but not the podcast, but they give picks for DF MMA. Not one of them has a better record than us. At best, you got a couple and I'm not going to name any names right now, but not one of them has beaten us, and only a couple of them are tied with us right now since we've started this. And there's no reason you have to pay $100 or $50 or something like that for picks when we are literally giving you the exact same quality information plus a podcast that's free. No reason, guys. I'm sorry. I just don't want to trash on other providers, and I'm not going to name other providers, but there's no reason to pay those ridiculous prices when we offer what we offer with Prime for, believe it's $23.99 a month. So,
yeah, DFS Prime Lineups is the best deal in DFS. I came in as a subscriber, and I'm still a member and going strong, helping out and providing. And I've never had more fun in my life. And it doesn't matter if you're a seasoned vet who wants to talk details with us, or if you're a brand new player who doesn't know a single thing about any sport, we will figure out how to help you. All you got to do is ask, though. So, guys, thank you so much for an awesome podcast, and we hope to do this again next week. All right, guys, have a good one.